That Amendment 5, 6 and 7 are all being discussed together. It's late and I'm not going to speak too long to these amendments. I think I've said all I have to say about this bill. It's unfortunate that what we asked for, the defence, was removed and that it should have been treated as an exemption if you're a humanitarian organisation or acting for humanitarian purposes. But that we've lost that. I'm moving on to 5, 6 and 7, and they're very, very basic again, Minister, but I understand that you're not accepting these amendments. Maybe I'm wrong. And they're so factual, I'm going to read them out, that the Minister shall, on an annual basis following the passing of the Act, lay a report before both houses of the Oireachtas, ABC, at the number of prosecutions not pursued due to humanitarian defence. And this speaks directly, Minister, to what you said on the last occasion, that you didn't expect any prosecutions to be brought if it was a humanitarian organisation or someone acting for humanitarian purposes. So I think we need to see the evidence in relation to that. B, the number of prosecutions pursued where a humanitarian defence was implied, and C, any impact which this Act may have had in respect of the level of engagement of humanitarian organisations in humanitarian activity in respect of smuggled persons, because all of the research and the comments and the evidence from the organisations on the ground is that this piece of legislation will have a chilling effect on humanitarian activities. The second amendment, that within 12 months the Minister shall lay a report before the Houses in relation to training, and that's clearly set out. And the final one is that the Minister shall, within 12 months of the passing of the Act, lay a report before both houses of the Oireachtas, setting out proposals to strengthen the identification of smuggled persons and the potential for human rights experts from non-governmental organisations to assist in identification and support of smuggled persons. And this comes directly from the UN protocol, which sets out the protection of smuggled persons as one of its main purposes. I'm going to just finish by quoting from the recommendations from the Irish Human Rights and Equality, and who they quote in relation to the absence of data. And they tell us that the bill, and it was at that time the general scheme, but the bill still is silent on data collection. And the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights recommends that states should continually assess the human rights impact of migration measures and consider facilitating independent monitoring of the operation of migration policies and legislation. The Council of the EU, they quote, have stressed the need to significantly increase and improve the collection, sharing and analysis of data and knowledge about migrant smuggling in order to develop more effective, coordinated evidence policies. The European Parliament I quoted on the last occasion, and I'm quoting it again, they say that members should put in place adequate systems to monitor the enforcement and effective practical application of the facilitators package, which is the overall name for the directive and the decision that this legislation is trying to implement. And by collecting and recording annually information about the number of people arrested for facilitation at the border and inland and so on. So there are any amount of organisations telling us that we need to collect data. In relation to human trafficking, we're on a watch list under the particular organisation from America. I know you took exception to us quoting that on the last occasion, but I'm afraid they're the facts. So I'm going to conclude because it's so late. I would ask you to take on the three. I indicated that I couldn't vote for this legislation, even though I see the importance of it in terms of strengthening the penal procedure and the penal provisions to stop smuggling and to catch smugglers. But unfortunately, in trying to do that, we have now made it much harder for humanitarian organisations on the ground by not giving them the exemption and by saying we will only allow it as a defence. So it's actually a penalty. Even if there's no prosecution in the end, they're actually being penalised, and that is just unacceptable to me. And I might have gone with it if you were prepared to take these three amendments on board, because they're very factual, and it would show that the government is open to learning, open to putting the evidence before us, and then in the future changing the legislation accordingly if necessary. Garmagat.